Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Hi, friends. Welcome back. It's been a while since I've made a solo episode, months of time. And it's been about 2 weeks since I've been home from a road trip that I recently took. And this was a road trip that I had planned to take long before the layoff. But when I got laid off, I decided to go ahead with it anyway. And it just felt like the right way to step into this new season, not in a matter of like running away, but really just like meeting this next chapter head on with intention and presence, and kind of going back home. Like for me, road trip is kind of a sense of groundedness. So anyway, let's back up a little bit. So the layoff, for those of you who maybe don't know, I was affected by a company-wide layoff. So after 17 years, I finally, my time was up. And honestly, it was something I could just feel was coming. Like, do you ever have those moments, the ones where you just know in your gut that something's going to happen for you? And I just had this deep knowing. And it was really actually this kind of sacred time where I just knew. So I was leading, so I loved leading this women's group at work. It was a women's resource group of over 700 members, and I got to be a chair for that group. And it was so amazing. The members of that group were incredible. And so I got to co-host one of our panels, which I had set up this event pillar, I don't know, 2 years ago to do women in leadership panels. And we would invite these women leaders from inside the organization to come and speak to the group. And they really got to know, the members really got to know these leaders in such a human way. And this event pillar, like, it just became really popular. People really seem to get a lot of value out of it. I think especially just because it gives that proof of what is possible for yourself. And anyway, because I was leading the group, I was no longer always the host. But at this particular event, I got to co-host it. And I got to co-host it. And one of the leaders that was speaking on the panel was a former boss of mine. And it just all really was, I don't know, just the synchronicity was there. And so I co-hosted this panel. It was so great. It was like so full of energy. It was one of our best panels yet. Like, it just felt like there was something special there. I can't even explain it. The comments afterwards were just amazing. And it went so well. And after that panel, I literally remember thinking to myself, like, that's it. I'm going to go out on this high. And I was at work. I was at the office. So I worked remotely, but every once in a while I'd go into our corporate office for meetings. And I was there for a meeting, and then afterward had led this panel. And I just had this visceral thought of like, that's it. Like, my time is over. And like, kind of just like, that was the cherry on top. That was it. I went and like shut down my computer, took a moment in that office to just like thank Providence, thank the universe, and just kind of thank the people in my head of like, just thank you for this experience of the last 17 years. I literally just, it was kind of my own goodbye. That I just kind of mentally was doing. And then I went to the bathroom. I like took a selfie because I was like, this is my last picture. I don't know. I just felt like I wanted to document me in the mirror. And it was like, I can just tell by the look on my face that it's kind of this bittersweet, like, yep, this is it. And so anyway, I just had this knowing, and I walked out, and I just knew that's going to be that. And that was it. That was it. And I think it was a week or two later, I got laid off. And it wasn't, this isn't even a bad experience. I definitely felt like I was kind of attracting it. I feel like I have broken down so many other old stories and have worked through some really big pillars in my life. I've worked through things with my relationships, with my own independence, with my own self-trust and worth. And I've traveled the US alone during a pandemic with no home except for what was in the trunk of my car. And I was Airbnb-ing my life across the US. And I've just had some pretty major personal life lessons that I've, reworked so far. And for a long time, I just kind of knew in the back of my head, like, I know at some point I'm going to have to rework this career thing because I have worked here for 17 years of my life. I started working here when I couldn't even drink. I wasn't even drinking age. So I haven't known any different. And I just knew this like career and that's kind of attached to money, right? Like this career pillar was going to be the next like big thing to conquer. And here we are. Now is the time. So, up until my last day, I actually was really busy. I was meeting with as many people as I could. I've gotten to know so many just incredible people over the last 17 years. And I think that was the greatest gift, was honestly letting people know that I was leaving and getting these responses, especially from the women's community, that just really like broke my heart open because we just often don't hear of what our impact is. And I think the greatest thing that I could walk away with from the layoff is I got to feel that. Like I really got to feel that from people that I didn't even really know who would write me and say, we haven't even really met, but like, I just really appreciate the way that you ran this community. It was just like this outpouring of love. It was really, really amazing. And so I was meeting with people, I was connecting with people, I was wrapping up old files, the archives and your emails and like folders that you just forgot all about, and doing research on taxes and severance, things I didn't know about up until now. And I was really starting to work with we have a career coaching service that I'm working with now still, but I was starting to engage with them. And so I was really busy. And honestly, hindsight, I wish I would have taken a little more time off. I wish I would have taken a little more relaxed time before my last day. But here we are now. And so the day before I left for this road trip, I had my final team meeting, which if you've ever gone through this, like it's so nice that you get to like have your last team meeting and everyone says nice things about you. And like, it's so sweet and sacred in its own right, but it's also kind of awkward. And because of all the buildup up until my last day, I was kind of glad when this was all over and like just kind of not again because of anyone or anything, but just because it was like, oh, okay, I can take a deep breath at this moment. But even still, like then the last day comes and I'm applying for unemployment. I'm, signing my severance agreement. And it's just a weird feeling after almost 2 decades. It's weird to get that email that's like, please sign here to be done. Here's your severance agreement, please sign. And then just, wrapping up a couple of final messages. And then you literally shut down your computer for the last time. And it's in that moment that you're like, gosh, there's no big fanfare here. There's nothing other than just me sitting here in front of this computer that I will never log into again. It's a little strange, but I was able to, hit the road right away. And so I was heading north to Fresno to help at a friend's retreat. And this was like a business retreat. And I brought all of my podcast gear, video gear to really do this very first in-person experience where I was recording the women at this retreat so that they could have clips of them talking about their brand and who they were to share on social media so that people could get a sense of the woman behind the brand, of the woman behind the business. And I love interviewing women. So if you know me, like interviews are my love language. And I had tested this. I had tested my setup at home. I had done it with friends. I had done it with myself. Like I really wanted to make sure. And if you know me also, you know that I love to have everything worked out. I love to be organized. I love to make sure things are going to go without a hitch. So universe had other plans. I got to the retreat and there really wasn't like a great space for me to record. So I kind of makeshifted a studio in one of the girls' rooms, which worked out. My mic wasn't turning on. So I could not figure out what was going on. Finally, I was able to get it to show that it had power and turn on. And so off we went. Like, we started getting into the conversations and the conversations were just so good. I mean, these women were sharing things and it was so deep and they were emotional and vulnerable. And my heart was on fire. Like I was like, this is what it is. Like, let's go. And then we get to lunch and I'm exhausted, but kind of in a good way. Right. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit here and like listen to make sure the clips, I just want to listen back to what we just did. And I'm playing them back and oh my God, my heart drops into my butt. My heart drops into my stomach. Literally, like the worst nightmare is, with video or with audio stuff is having tech glitches. And the audio was just fuzz, just static. Not even like, I can kind of hear it. No, I could not hear anything of what they were saying. I could see the video, but the audio was fuzz. And I ended up re-interviewing almost everybody there. So, forget my lunch. I just was focused on how am I going to do this? I messed with some of the ports on my computer, tested a couple more things, was finally able to get my mic working. And then, of course, before each interview, I was testing. And I was able to, thank goodness, get the interviews done. But as you can imagine, when you re-interview people, you can't always recreate that kind of magic on demand. And for some people, the second interview actually was better. But for a couple of people, I feel like we lost out. We lost out on some really good content. And by the end of the day, I was exhausted and emotionally drained. So like here I am, I've just like left my work, my job, and I went straight into this road trip. And now I'm like recording these interviews and my God, I had such tech issues. So that night I just went back to my Airbnb. I got some random food and I sat down and I just had a good little cry for a moment. I hadn't had that at all. Like even from the time I was told like, hey, you're being laid off, like I could feel the emotion there, but I am not a good person. I don't cry easily. But at that moment, I was like, oh, I just felt kind of defeated. Before I had gone on this road trip, we had just like replaced our air conditioning, which if you know anything about that, you know that that's expensive. Here I am laid off without a job. And here I am with all these tech issues after, leaving this thing that has been part of my life for so long. I just felt really like, I don't even know, over it all. Even though I knew like something good is going to come from this, you just have those moments every once in a while where you're like, I just have to feel this. And so the next day, fortunately, I was able to get back in the car and drive. And I was driving toward Oregon, and driving for me is really like meditation. It was the best thing I could have done in that moment because you can't multitask. I couldn't sit there and edit all the videos. I just had to get to my next spot, my next Airbnb. And so the spiraling became less. The road was just all that I could focus on. And I listened to some audiobooks that really started to inspire me about like finance and real estate. I don't know, more to come, maybe TBD. But I just started to get inspired again and was listening to music that made me sing along and just finally was kind of in this flow state that felt for the first time like, I can kind of breathe and I'm not behind a computer and I'm not struggling with tech issues. I am just driving. So that really just became, I don't know. I just feel like that was such a good groundedness for me. And so glad I did that. And then before I ended the trip, I stopped in Seattle. So I went over to Seattle because I thought I was going to have to record a podcast. And you guys, my mic. So the whole time I did not know this, but my mic was failing me. I did not know that after a certain amount of years, your mic will just basically give up. So I'm talking to you through a new mic, which is all great, but I didn't realize that. So clearly, some of the tech issues I was having at the retreat were all because I was dealing with this mic that was on its last legs. So, anyways, I was getting set up to record this podcast over in Seattle. Fortunately, it was just going to be virtual, like I'm very used to that. And my mic isn't showing up and it's like not even being recognized. I'm like, what is going on? I'm trying to find out if it's like the cable, the computer, whatever, not having any luck. And then the universe stepped in kind of a great way. And my guest actually ghosted me, like completely dropped off the face of the earth. I don't know what happened to her. That very rarely happens. And normally I'd be pretty annoyed. But at that point, I was just feeling like the universe was like, it's okay. Like, it's all good. You're going to be fine. You're going to go get a new mic and you're going to get your tech stuff all figured out. And this is just me gifting you this little moment in time. Got to see a couple people before I left. And so then I was just really ready to go home. If you've ever been on like a 2-week journey of a road trip, you kind of get to that point where you're like, I can't do anymore. I'm just ready to be done. So I really I was like gunning it for home. I was excited to get back to my life. I was excited to get back to some like routines. And, I came back and sent off my work laptop and was off and running with like Cobra insurance paperwork and all these reminders of the layoff, but didn't really hit me for a minute. And at first I felt pretty okay. But then a couple days in, and it was on like a random Saturday too, which is so awkward, like and weird that it was on a weekend. But I was sitting there drinking coffee and I just got this feeling of anxiety and like, or just like I should be doing something. And I got up and I was like, oh my gosh, I just feel like I should be doing something. And I just started kind of frantically running around the house doing stuff. And it just kind of all hit me. And it wasn't silence. Like it wasn't because I'm sitting there bored. It just, I don't know, all of it just kind of came rushing in. The feeling of, the last month and a half where I just felt like I was constantly in go mode, constantly in doing mode, constantly feeling super present where I was, but didn't have a chance to really like breathe. Minus, some of the time while I was actually like driving, which is probably the most exhale I'd really gotten up until this point. But I hadn't really felt it. Like I hadn't felt any of the negative feelings. And not that this was negative, but it just came in like rushing back. And, some of it was just because I had so much to do. And if you know me, I always have stuff going on. I always have creative projects. I always have things going on with the podcast. I have a lot that I love to be involved in. My biggest issue is that I have trouble resting and relaxing. I've just had some days where I've felt like a lot of self-doubt. I've had a lot of anxiety in moments. And I'm just relearning what it's like to not be, to not have those Teams dings from my teammates popping up on, we would just chat on Teams and to not have those meeting dings pop up and those reminders and the emails. And at the same time, like it's kind of nice and kind of freeing, right? To not have that happening right now. But it's grounded me for 17 years. So I feel like this is just part of the unraveling. It really is just part of this next season. And so, when I was on the road, I was feeling open, engaged. It was something to do. Like I was looking ahead to that. And now coming home, it's like, okay, and now what? And now, I have to decide all of this. And now I have all these videos to edit. And now I have to get them back to the retreat women. And I have to, just kind of transition some stuff, some healthcare benefits stuff, some other things that the layoff had affected that I just needed to make sure I was getting caught up with and, getting my resume even more dialed in. There's just a lot going on that I think I didn't totally expect. And the whirlwind just kind of caught up to me. But I've also had some really amazing days too, where I have felt like I really am aligned. And regardless of the times where I've felt the weight of the layoff a little more, I continue to come back to feeling like this is so for me right now. I do not regret this. I do not regret that I kind of attracted this into my life. And like, yes, maybe I don't have a perfect plan right now. Maybe I don't know exactly what the next step is, but I literally have this written down. and it says, it's on a sticky note, and it says, permission to not know. Permission to not know. I have had so many adventures in my life. When I left for the Airbnb adventure during the pandemic, I didn't know. I didn't have it all figured out. I knew kind of who I was going to stay with when I first got down to California, but I didn't know what was going to be next. And I figured it out, and it was like better than I could have imagined. There were definitely some hard moments, but that journey was what led me to meet Luke. And I'm now very happily with him for the last almost 4 years. And I can't imagine like not meeting him. And it just led me to so many amazing lessons going on that solo travel adventure, getting to know myself in such a deeper way, getting to be okay with myself and with nothing. Like I really owned nothing. Like I just owned what I had in the back of my car. And I feel like the greatest learning for me has come from those times where I didn't have a perfect plan. And so I keep reminding myself that I have to allow, I have to let this pause and let this blank canvas show me the way and like let it flow. Yes, like obviously I'm going to have intentions and I'm going to have my motivations like I always do, and the things I'm working on, but I also can't grip onto them too tightly. And so I hope this is a lesson for you if you're also going through some sort of transition, or you're in a new chapter, or you're redefining something for yourself, that if you have those moments of like angst, just know that it's unfolding. And this is like part of the feeling of that unfolding. Sometimes it's not pleasant. Sometimes it's not easy. And no one really prepares you for the way it unfolds, like how you're going to feel, when you're going to be hit with emotions. But it's meant to happen. And I think it's really like a beautiful process. And I really am looking forward to what lies ahead. I really am. I'm excited. I've already learned some lessons about myself, some things that I thought I was going to want to pursue. I actually don't want to pursue. And some new things have cropped up of interest and intrigue. And so I'm really curious to follow it. And I also really want to make sure that I do what I keep talking about, which has been that I want to lead my life with more joy. And I want to allow myself more rest and to feel worthy in that restful place, and to not feel like I have to push forward all the time. Like I have to have 9,000 to-do lists. Like I have to demonstrate to somebody somewhere that I'm doing the work. And I just think that right now I'm getting that lesson of like, it feels a little uncomfortable, but I need to push myself to allow that restorative peace into my life a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to it. And here I am somewhere between the end of one chapter and the beginning of the next, and not really being settled, not really being still yet, but still moving forward. And I think that's what this is all about. So I hope this lands with you. And I hope that wherever you are, you give yourself the grace of whatever it is that you're experiencing. And just know that there is a bigger plan for all of us. I just feel like we are all being held and guided, and we're just kind of flowing down the river of life, right? And we have to allow some of that flow as well. We can't hold on to it maybe like we always have. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you're doing well wherever you are. And I'm just sending you the biggest virtual hug. Thank you for being here with me. And thank you for coming back time and time again to listen to the podcast. That means more than you could ever know. And I can't wait for some of the interviews we have coming, because I love interviewing so much. There's something just amazing about when people come alive telling their stories, and you can like literally feel that in them. There's nothing better for me. And there's nothing better for me than when other people listen and get something out of that. And then like you come alive yourself. You know, when you listen to a podcast and you're listening to a speaker and you're just like, oh, like you get that inspiration, you get that flicker of excitement, you get something like a spark inside of your gut to go do something different, or to go chase something, or just even to kind of believe in yourself a little differently. I love that. And I feel like that's what podcasting does for me, and hopefully for you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to my journey. I really appreciate that I can share this all with you, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you.
there is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.